Okay, welcome everyone. This is August 15th, 2023. And this is the SIG Windows community meeting. Happens every Tuesday at 9:30 Pacific. And we are a CNCF project, so we follow the CNCF guidelines. If you have any concerns or questions about those, please reach out. And go ahead and get started. So announcements, I think it's not on here, but 128 comes out today. So 28 is released today at some point. So that's exciting. Thank you to everyone who contributed to that. And does anybody else have any other announcements that they want to bring up? All right. So then the other thing we do is just give a moment for anybody that's new to the community to take a moment and say hello and let us know what you're interested in and how you want to get involved. Okay, cool. Since no one said that, we'll continue on with the agenda. So we have a few things here. The first one is from Jay, and I don't see him today. And I don't know exactly what this means. So I think we'll skip that one, and if Jay shows up, we can put it back on, unless anybody has anything they wanted to add here. Muncie's also not here. I know she started a thread in SIG Windows, and there's a little bit of chatter back and forth on that. There's a environment variable to be able to set up a proxy. So if she shows up, we can discuss that as well. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next one. Anybody have any questions? Oh, and there's Jay.
I assume we're not in trouble for the HashiCorp stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's on the agenda. We can talk about it in a minute.
Okay.
Did you want to? We started the agenda, but you had the first one here, this HNS load balance. Did you want to quickly talk about that?
I think it was a question about what so there's these HNS has this load balancer parameter that you can send it, and we're digging into this. And it's like distribute for connection 0, distribute traffic of the same protocol 1, distribute client IP 2. And I was just wondering if that is like, if those are we actively like changing or modifying those, or do those map, or has anybody documented how those are supposed to map over to kube proxy behavior at all? For, you know what I mean? Like, is there any intersection there that we need to document? Is there some other use case for that that's more important than the kube proxy, or is this irrelevant to the kube proxy?
That I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that setting. Do you know how it's being used in the current kube proxy?
So, yeah, I didn't get a chance to look much into it. I don't really have anything there. I figured maybe somebody would just know, but
yeah, I don't
like,
see the networking folks on the call, so
okay. Yeah.
but we can start a thread in SIG Windows and try to get David to take a look at it.
Yeah. Okay.
He would know off the top of his head, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly in there, like it's definitely like in the code. So, the question is like, I'm just grepping around right now, and I'm like, I see the load balancer distribution type. Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely code in there for session affinity.
Oh,
but
yeah.
but it's like just one line. Now I remember this because I looked at this. Yeah, so it's in there. It's like there's some code that says like if its session affinity is on, then distribute by the source IP. But like, I don't know whether that really works, like, or whether we're working on that or testing it, you know. So
I think there is a test that covers affinity. I think it was added in like 121 or something.
yeah. Okay. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll just have to pursue it in Slack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, oh no, it's Brandon. Well, welcome, Brandon. But we had a networking question. So, cool.
Okay.
All right. We'll follow up in Slack.
Sounds good.
Is there any other questions or comments on that one? All right. So someone opened up a issue here for supporting pod eviction in Windows. Our documents say that eviction hard and eviction soft are not implemented. So I started looking into this. I know that like we do have some working stuff around pod disruption budget. And then also Mark, and I didn't link it here, but Mark did some work to verify that if there's disk pressure, then there is cleanup done for that. But I don't know if there's any pod evictions that happen because of that. So I don't know if anybody else has looked into this or is aware of this, but or requires this, but I was just kind of collecting some information here on pod eviction. Anybody aware? Brendan, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
No, I'm not exactly sure here.
Okay, I'll continue to do some research on this and figure out what works and what doesn't work. Last time I read the docs on this, they've changed quite a bit. So I think even some of the implementation might have changed. So probably need to revisit this. If anybody has a strong desire, let me know and we can coordinate that. Cool. And then the last thing on the agenda here is Vagrant. If you haven't seen, HashiCorp updated their business license. And so there's a thread in Slack around identifying usages of any of the HashiCorp libraries and products within any of the Kubernetes sub-projects. SIG Windows dev tools came up. Jay, I saw you commented on that issue. We don't actually package anything or pull in any libraries as far as I'm aware. But I thought I'd bring it up here just in case somebody knew differently. I think we were even looking at trying to get away from Vagrant, was it? Or you're on mute, Jay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we want to get away from Vagrant. We haven't found anything better though. I assume it doesn't affect us at all though, because we just consume it as an executable. People download it, they install it on their own. We don't vendor any of its libraries. We don't ship anything. We don't even have releases, right? So I don't think it affects us at all.
It's also not production. I think that was one of the major...
It's definitely the least production thing in the world, right? So yeah, I think we're okay. Unless somebody tells me I'm totally wrong, I'm totally not worried about it.
Oh, yeah, we added it to that list so somebody could review it. I'm sure they'll go through it all. They did send out some guidance this morning on it.
Okay.
Which which I can link somewhere. But
Yeah, I think, if we have to move from Vagrant to something else, the something else might be also something from HashiCorp, and then we're stuck in the same boat.
Yeah, it'd just be terrible. Yeah,
Oh,
it'd be
let's do
Packer and
Terraform. Oh, we can't use Terraform. Oh, let's use Packer. Oh, we can't use Packer.
We just-
yeah, we use Packer over in the image builder project, and so we're trying to figure that out right now.
that's a scary one, right? Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So, is anybody aware of any other SIG Windows projects that use libraries? I know they're scanning all the different cubes, so projects, and but I'm not aware of any. But if anybody had any else, we should also just make sure we get that added to the list. Nope. Okay. Well, cool. Is there any other agenda items or anything anybody wants to talk about today? If not, we did at the end I opened up a PR for some Windows documentation, I think. We could potentially review that as a group. I think that was kind of, one of the things. If we have a wide agenda and we have a few extra minutes, we can just go over stuff and discuss it. So that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I got to jump a little early today, but we'll see y'all.
Atenda, do you want to just share your PR and we could quickly review it as a group and get some early feedback?
Sure thing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can either give me the link or you can share your screen, whatever works better.
We're referring to the website one, right? The one regarding the system requirements. Okay. I'm looking for it quickly. Ready? Just give me a sec. Share my screen in a moment. I think I have it up now. Share my screen. I'm getting the message I can't share my screen, so let me drop the link.
I think you should have permission to share.
I know. I've just shared screen. Is it showing?
Yeah.
Perfect. So this is the PR. It's the PR to specify like the hardware requirements that we want for Windows. So I think the best would be to open preview. And then we can sort of look at it from there. So I've added it in this section, which is Windows containers and Kubernetes. I don't know if you want it to have its own section. Maybe that's the first thing you can want to discuss. And then it's down here. So I guess the challenge with specifying the requirements from what I've seen is the requirements will differ based on what the person has for their workload requirements and what they might have installed. But right now, most of what I've specified is relying on the documentation from Microsoft for Windows Server. And I think the main thing I changed was the RAM because of the idea that you probably want to run a few pods there. And this is how it looks. I don't know. I think maybe we can probably introspect it later. I've linked I've linked Windows documentation also. I don't know if that's something we want to do.
Yeah, so I think Windows and containers and Kubernetes seems like the perfect place for this. We can link the hardware requirements. I think the free space of disk needs to be much higher. I don't know if we have actual guidance anywhere, Brandon. I don't know if you know if we have actual guidance somewhere on like the Windows side of things, but I think for AKS we at least bump that to 100 gigabytes. As soon as you download 1 or 2 images, you're gonna hit that free disk space pretty quickly.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think I can increase this
Yeah.
to probably 15.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have it on the Windows containers docs page. But yeah, 20 gigs might be a bit small.
Got it. I've made a note on the side for that.
Okay,
Is there anything else that jumps to anyone that I can just take as feedback to change as well?
Question, that processor, it's only one core or what? Or is
That's a good point. I think it's supposed to be 4 cores. I think that's what I remember seeing. I think I should specify that. That's a good point, Claudio.
yeah, because a processor can have multiple cores, so it's not really clear.
I think let me specify it as 4 because these are more like Andy said. It's more like we're recommending that this is the ideal minimum to have. I think I'll specify that 4 cores with the vCPU or with a virtual or non-virtual. I'll make that update.
yeah, but otherwise it looks pretty good here, I think. So thanks for taking this on and getting it out there.
Sure thing. You're welcome.
As for hardware requirements, there's one thing that jumps to mind if this is still needed. I think before, I don't know if it's still true, but we kind of needed virtualization enabled in order to create the vSwitch required to tie the CNI to the pods themselves only once, basically, if I remember correctly, after which is no longer necessary. Is that still the case?
So we have a workaround that
Uh,
allows you to get that. Maybe we should call that out.
yeah.
I think you need it to be able to get the PowerShell commandlets, but then we have a workaround that allows you to not require hardware virtualization unless you're using like Hyper-V or something. So.
Because I think I remember recently someone tried to deploy Windows worker nodes for Kubernetes, and one of the issues that they encountered I don't remember which cloud provider. They basically had to switch the flavor to a higher one which had necessary virtualization enabled, just to actually configure the worker nodes. So
Yeah, we do have a link, and this has come up several times, so I think it probably makes sense to link it in here. So I will find that and give it to you once I have it.
Mhm.
Good call.
Okay, thanks. I think James, I'll probably reach out to see how we can phrase that list. But thanks for that, Claudio. Was it Fabian? I'm not sure.
So the other thing I just want to call out is I think we should make it clear that these minimum requirements that we are specifying could. Okay, so how do I phrase this? So we are saying that these are the minimum requirements, but then we are also listing a bunch of other considerations that need to be taken into account, which are, container runtime requirements, Kubernetes core components that run. I feel like we should at least take into effect or take into, like, maybe take into consideration the core components and the runtime when we come out with a minimum hardware recommendation. Because it's going to be hard for a user to figure that out on their own, in addition to like them having to run an antivirus or something like that, right?
I don't know if it addresses what you're mentioning, but what I did do is I spun up a node and I monitored the resource usage with just the core components that were there, like checking about the CPU utilization and the RAM usage. I can try and find my nodes, but that's also something I took into consideration to put these metrics here. But also something you said that I liked is we need to really make it clear about what these minimum requirements are based on.
Yeah, yeah, because you know you have said that these are the minimum requirements, and you're going to bump some of them up, but you're going to add the Kubernetes core and the container runtime. And then the other thing you really need to call out is what workload is the customer going to run? If the customer is going to run some, I've seen some customers trying to just take a VM and convert it into a container, and then they need like, I don't know, 48 gigs of memory and 8 cores. So at that point, the requirement for the node just becomes, what do you call it? It becomes dependent on what the customer workload is. So that is the other thing we need to call out here, is that this is the minimum requirement, including the Kubernetes core components. These can change based on customer workloads, which is the case even on Linux. It's not special for Windows, but you know, we need to call that out.
This is enough to get it up and running and have everything running, but it may not
Yeah.
actually run your workload.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll find how I can rephrase that. I get the point, and then I'll definitely reach out to you, to Arvind, to just get some feedback of if you think it addresses it nicely.
Yeah,
I need to know.
sounds good. Yeah, tag me on the PR and I'll take a look. But this is great. It's a great start. So thank you for doing it.
Maybe the last question I have before I close this off is there, like I try to think of situations that maybe we want to call out something, maybe something that's specific to Windows. A good example is with Linux, they discourage enabling swap memory on the nodes because it might impact the performance. I'm not sure if it still applies because it was something that seemed to apply to older versions of Kubernetes. If there's anything like that that anyone is aware of, just let me know.
I mean, kubeadm explicitly gives you an error if you try to initialize it or join it on a node which has swap, but not on Windows. So such check doesn't exist on Windows at this moment. Might still be interesting to have in the future, maybe, but it's not a requirement at this time. But another thing that, if you're mentioning other requirements, not sure if we support any other container runtimes at this moment, but it might be useful to mention that if containerd is being used, they are going to need at least containerd 1.6 in order to have phosphorus containers, which we use for the CNIs and kubeproxy daemon sets. If they're not using containerd as a runtime, then special considerations might be needed for those cases, because they probably won't be able to run Phosphorus containers, and they'd have to manually install kubeproxy and the CNIs.
That's a good point. I've made a note of that, and
Yeah, I
I'll
think
share.
that's sort of out of scope for this particular section of the document.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we call that type of thing out in some other areas around containerd.
You got it. So I'll exclude that for now. I'll make a note of it either way, but I'll exclude it from my change.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks either way, Claudio.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for doing this.
I think that's it from me. I think I stopped sharing my screen. I don't know if I stopped it too early. But
Yeah, sorry. I was on mute. We're at
Please carry
time,
on.
so thank you. And thank you for doing that work. And we will see everyone next week. Bye.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Thanks, James.